Hello and welcome back to United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey. We're here once again on Saturday at 8 p.m. to hear more about astronomy. Before we get into that, I do want to thank everyone who is here online on both YouTube and Twitch. It's great to see you all back here. Uh, don't forget to hit those free actions like follow, subscribe, whichever platform you happen to be on. It does let us know that we are doing a good job and getting all the science and astronomy out to as many people as possible. With that, you can also check us out, United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey, out on our website, uacnj.org. It's where you're going to find a list of all our upcoming talks that we have scheduled, as well as uh, information on our telescopes and scientific equipment at the observatory and on our member clubs, because that is right, we are a club made up of other clubs, which means we do try and connect people to their local club, which will give them helpful hints and tricks to do with their specific area. Because honestly, if I'm out here in Warren County, New Jersey, and you are in New York City, the tips I might find helpful might not be so helpful for you. Uh, but we know some people who could definitely help you with that. With that, you can also check us out on our social media pages, our Facebook, our Instagram. We have a Discord server, all excellent places where you can reach out about your If you need help as far as astronomy with your telescope setup, or even if you just want to share your images or your latest experience backpacking or camping out under the stars. Uh, you can also check us out. We are a nonprofit, so every bit of support, even whether it be free or through things like our Patreon, our monetary subscribers on Twitch, anyone who donates, all go to help keep our bills paid and these free programs running. So I do want to put out a big thank you for all of those who have supported us so far and continue to support us. With that, you have not come here today to hear me talk, although you have in the past. But today we are here for our monthly What's Up in the March Sky Talk with Lonny Buinis. Lonnie has been giving the What's Up series since the start of UACNJ in roughly the Cretaceous period. He received degrees from Stevens Institute of Technology and Physics and Computer Science, then made space art and taught himself 3D animation and video editing. Lonnie is the only member of the International Space Artists to specialize in virtual reality worlds, and his current projects include expanding his interactive space history ebook with the help of his narrator and wife, Jan Bunis. And of course, as always, practicing putting on his pants 2 legs at a time, a skill that I will never, ever try and perfect myself. With that, here is Lonnie.
Thank you very much, Kim. And programs like this would not be possible without the behind the scenes and in front of the people support from Kim and Jeff and Chris and a lot of the amateur astronomers at UACNJ, which is an umbrella organization of many different clubs in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. And I'm very happy to be part of that once a month, even though we do talks every Saturday on different topics. It's just the first Saturday of each month where we tell you what's up in the sky. So this month, I want you to remember, if you forget everything else I've told you, that there is going to be a total eclipse of the moon, otherwise known as a total lunar eclipse, on the 14th of March for us in New Jersey. Recently, I gave a talk for the Orange County astronomers in California, and that's why you see Chapman University in the lower left, and the time set to March 13th, the night before. But you know that California is behind us by how many hours? Add 3 to 23 hours or 11 p.m. And you get maximum eclipse in New Jersey, not California, at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. 26 minus 24 hours is 2 a.m. You want to watch the eclipse of the moon between 1 and 3 when the moon is in the umbra, the deepest part of the Earth's shadow. And here I've drawn it out into space, even though you cannot see the shadow. No way to tell. It is bigger than the moon, right? Because the Earth is bigger than the moon by a factor of about 4. And why is the shadow fuzzy like this? There's a fuzzy part and a deeper part. It's because the light source is not a tiny point of light, which if you draw rays out, give you a sharp shadow. The sun looks like about half a degree from Earth, about the same size as the moon. So if you forget everything else I've said tonight, well, I'll remind you about the moon eclipse later. A lot of us are concerned about asteroid with the easy to remember name 2024 YR4. My question is, why are it called this when they could have given it a name like Chuck or Bob, asteroid Bob? Originally expected to hit the Earth with a probability of 1%, then raised to 2.2%, then raised to 3%, striking somewhere in this long train, this long track. Now, is that dangerous? I mean, couldn't it just burn up in the atmosphere like most meteors? Well, this thing is now estimated to be 40 to 80 meters across. That's up to 264 feet or so. Big, in other words, and dangerous. And here it's its path animated to show how it intersects with Earth in the year 2032. The orbit is still being refined. We're still measuring the orbit. Um, uh, Hold on just a second. We might have an emergency.
Say hi to Joe.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm being reminded that one of my special friends, Joe, is watching us right now, and I want to just give a shout out to everybody out there in virtual land, including Joe. Thank you, Joe. This is an Apollo Earth-crossing asteroid. Here's the original estimated size, 4,200 meters. They revised that down to 40 to 90 meters. That's still pretty big. A meter is about 3 1/3 feet. So 200 feet is big. It's larger than the Tunguska meteoroid that blew up in the atmosphere 6 to 9 miles up over the forest in Siberia in the year 1908, the biggest explosion in modern history. And that blew down 80 million trees like matchsticks. The Chelyabinsk meteoroid, everybody remember this, blew up in Russia in the year 2015. It wasn't that long ago. I know some younger members of the audience might be too young to remember that, but I'm old, so I remember a lot of things. I wasn't around in 1908, but I was around in 2015 when an asteroid up to 60 feet in size blew up, shattered windows everywhere, and caused some damage, including to people. Right? It was seen as a bright fireball and an exploding bolide, a fireball that explodes. All right, so for comparison, we've got a Boeing 747 and a bus here. These things are big, and there's a scale that measures their danger called the Torino scale. Lucky for us, this has been downgraded, because if it did hit the Earth, it might look like this illustration by space artist Don Davis, who was born the same year as I'm also a space artist. If you were 6 to 9 miles up, you might have seen something like this. An explosion with a force of up to 30 megatons. If 2024 YR4 hits the Earth direct on, it could be 50 megatons, like a nuclear bomb. Lucky for us, the path has been refined, even though the asteroid's moving away from us, and we won't know more till the year 2028. You can see the path of uncertainty has been shrinking with better and better estimates. We'll get a very good estimate in the year 2028 when the asteroid comes back again. And then in 2032 is the time when it may hit probably not the Earth, but the moon with a 1.7% chance. So in other words, it may just miss everything. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, we're here to talk about what there is we can see in the sky now, not in 2028 or 2032. If you go to go-astronomy.com, you get a nice calendar of events that encapsulates things that you see in the night sky when most of us are looking, say 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, before we go to bed. But if you want a more complete picture, go to starwalk.space online, and they've got an extensive list of things happening, including the total eclipse of the moon on March 14th. What I've done is to take this jumble of events and organize them by types, like the phases of the moon, the planets, and special events like the spring equinox, equal days and nights. So let's start with the lunar phases. Phases of the moon. We know about the eclipse, that's the full moon entering the Earth's shadow. Why doesn't it do that all the time? Well, I mean, the moon goes around the Earth in a circle, right? And so wouldn't it enter the shadow every month when we have an eclipse every month instead of only maybe twice a year? No, because the moon's orbit is tipped to the Earth's equator and it misses the shadow most of the time. But the whole orbit moves around, bringing the intersection point where the moon crosses the equator into the shadow. And that's what's going to happen on the 14th, when the moon will not only be full, but will be called the blood moon. We'll see why in a moment. If you do want to see details on the moon, don't look when it's full, because the sunlight is coming from behind you. No shadow details, right? You want to see shadows, look at the first quarter moon when the sun is setting until the moon sets some hours later. Right? So that's a good time to see shadows of craters and mountains on the moon. Or if you like to get up at 5 in the morning, the last quarter moon on the 22nd. New moon, great time to see faint objects at night, unless you live where I do in Bergen County, where there's so much light pollution that I only ever see planets and some star clusters and the North Star just barely. That's when the moon is in the daytime sky, the new moon. Can you see it? No, it's near the sun. We're looking at the darkened side of the moon that faces us, right? What isn't the other side of the moon the dark side, the one we don't see? Nope, because that's lit up as in the first quarter phase. It's lit up half on the other side as well. Go and light up any ball, a tennis ball, a racquetball, with a flashlight, and you'll see that half of it's always lit up, no matter what side you look at it from. That's one of the nice things you can get at moongiant.com, nice calendar. At starwalk.space, you can also get some mythology and legends about names for the full moon, Native American names, other colorful names from other sources. But this month, coming March, is when the soil starts to warm up, earthworms come out, they cast off their vermicasts, a word I just learned a few days ago when I made this presentation. Vermicast. Sounds good, right? Sounds delicious. A little vermicast with some pasta sauce, some garlic. No, that's the waste from earthworms, but it enriches the soil, and it's a good time for other animals to take advantage of that enriched soil and plants. So we've got the worm moon, also a micro moon. Why is that a micromoon? It's smaller than average, a little bit, because the moon doesn't go around the Earth in a circle. It goes around in an ellipse, carrying it away at apogee, and pretty close, P for perigee. A for away, apogee, P for pretty close, perigee. This month, the moon is in eclipse, in the shadow, and farthest it gets from the Earth by a few thousand miles, a micromoon. Tiny, you'll barely see the, no, that's not true. I'm going to make up a lot of stuff, and so see if you can catch me. The moon will not be tiny. It'll be barely smaller. I found 19 alternate names for the full moon this month. Each month has poetic names. I highlighted some of my favorite long names. Moon of the Whispering Wind, the Hopi Indians or Native Americans called it that. The moon when the leaves break forth from the Pueblo peoples. Hard to say that quickly. Pueblo peoples, Pueblo peoples. Say it 3 times fast. The buffalo dropping their calves moon, the catching fish moon, the corn moon. Sometimes the strawberry moon, although that's used more in June when wild strawberries are harvested. March events. So let's take a look also at what the planets are doing. Good time to see the inner planets. Mercury, first planet from the sun, first major planet, March 8th. And then Venus is both, this is very rare, both an evening star and a morning star in New Jersey. Isn't that amazing? It's inferior conjunction, means it's hiding behind the sun, but we'll see it briefly both in the evening and the morning. Hard to do that toward the end of the month. We've got the equinox and a partial eclipse of the sun. Also, a comet. Forgot all about this one. Comet, very easy to remember name, C/2022 E2 Atlas. Boy, I don't know. I don't know about these astronomers. The way they come up with the names for things doesn't always make sense to me. Let's just call it the comet. It's close to the Cassiopeia constellation. Looks like a letter W to me, or letter M, depending on the time of year. When it's about, well, let's see, February 28th at 11 o'clock at night, Cassiopeia is coming down in a circle around the North Star on the left side of the Little Dipper. So you want to look north to find it. And there's a very nice interactive tool that shows you where the comet is live. Oh, we can do that right now. Where is it? It's right there. Moved a little bit. We can watch it change overnight. We can actually pick the dates. So March 1st, how about, let's see what happens on the end of March, on the 31st. and it's moved over there. Not very far. So look in the vicinity of Cassiopeia with a telescope. It's not that bright. Magnitude 14. So you need a pretty powerful telescope. All right. What about, whoops. That alignment you keep hearing about that was supposed to be last night, it's not really an alignment. You know, a real alignment would be if all the planets were within a circle twice the size of the moon, a tiny circle. You know how often that happens? Somebody went to the trouble to compute it. Every 14 trillion years. Now, the age of the universe is 14 billion years. That's 14,000 million. 14 trillion is 14,000 billion years, 1,000 times longer than the universe is old. So what we're really looking at is an opportunity to see all the major planets in the night sky conveniently instead of having to wait up all night to see them scattered over the whole sky. Saturn and Mercury are difficult because they're so close to the sun now. Can you see Neptune without a telescope? No. Nope, a fairly powerful telescope. Venus is unmistakable. It's bright. It's near the moon tonight. Someone sent me a picture and asked me, what's that bright thing near the moon? And I wrote back, it's not a drone. It's the planet Venus. You would think it's the most beautiful planet because of the brilliant light that it sheds on us, strong enough to cast a shadow. If you ever see Venus in a nice dark sky, hold a piece of paper or something bright behind you, and you'll see your shadow cast by a point source of light, a very sharp shadow, unlike the Earth's shadow near the moon. All right, the planet Uranus can be seen by people with sharp eyesight in very, very, very dark skies, barely visible. But normally you'll need binoculars or a telescope. And Jupiter and Mars are unmistakable. They're very bright and high. Mars for its orangey color. We'll take a look at these planets in more detail soon. So I put alignment, the word, in quotes, because they're not really lined up. They're kind of scattered. Let's call it a large planetary scatter. If you want to see the innermost planet, Mercury, it is at its greatest angular distance away from the sun. So you have to look very close to sunset. And you can use the planet Venus to help you find it because Venus is super bright. Didn't show up in my screen capture from the free computer program Stellarium, which you can get for free. You can put it up even on a mobile device. I've done that. Helps you find stuff. And there you might see it as soon as the sun clears the sky and the sky gets dark enough. Venus is still unmistakable, very bright. Just not a very friendly place to visit, being at 900 degrees with an atmosphere that would dissolve your skin and burn you up. And what else? You couldn't breathe, the heat and the acid. Not a friendly place. The vernal equinox. What's vernal equinox? Same as spring equinox. The first day of spring is when the sun, if you could see the orbit of Earth around the sun drawn out into space, it would also show you where the signs of the zodiac are, the constellations that the sun and moon and planets move through, because the solar system is mostly, for the major planets, mostly flat. That's when the sun crosses the Earth's equator. So we've drawn that out into space. And you can see we've just missed the intersection point at 6 in the morning on March 20th. March 20, 6 a.m. You'd have to get up earlier to see the sun crossing the equator, but it'll be below the horizon in New Jersey. So I picked 6 a.m. when the sun has just risen. And there's the planet Venus in the morning sky. See, I didn't make it up. I do make up a lot of stuff, and see if you can catch me on that. Still waiting, astronomers. Where is it? You heard about the nova that we're expecting every 80 years? Like clockwork, this thing has gone off, just like Old Faithful, the fountain, the geyser in old Yellowstone Park in the US. Nope, T Corona Borealis hasn't shown up. It would be in the news for about 7.5 seconds on the major media if it happened. The Blaze Star, we call this. It's a white dwarf eating material from a giant red star. And every once in a while, an excess amount of material falls onto the accretion disk around the white dwarf star, which is only about the size of a planet, as opposed to the red giant star, which is the size of the orbit of some of our planets, many times bigger than our sun. So that material falls onto this disk that accretes or collects and blows up with a fusion explosion, very bright, looking like a new star, nova. Nova, the word for new. Hasn't happened. If it does happen, look in a right triangle from epsilon and delta in Corona the Crown. Only thing is, you'll have to do that early in the morning before the sun rises, because Corona the Crown, the Northern Crown, is a springtime constellation that I talked about in What's Up in the April or May sky. And that's close to summer. So you want to look right there. It'll become 1,600 times brighter if it happens, and when it happens. It was supposed to happen last year between April and September. What happened? Let's blame the astronomers, right? We blame the weather people when the weather isn't to our liking. It'll become 1,600 times brighter and look like one of these stars, temporarily disfiguring the crown. So some of these events I've sped by pretty quickly. Why don't we actually simulate them with Stellarium? And here we have Venus setting with the moon about 18 hours. What's 18 hours? 18 minus 12. Quick, mathematicians in the audience. Right, 6 p.m. That's what things look like, Venus and the moon setting over the main building at UACNJ. But what if I were to set this to the current time? 20, 23, and 57 seconds. Oh, I think I froze time. Let's see. There we go. 24 minutes after 20. 20 minus 12 is 8. 8:24 p.m. current time. Venus is gone. But Jupiter is there, setting in the west. If we want to get our bearings, though, I would not start out looking to the west. You might want to do that if you want to catch Venus and maybe Saturn. But I would like to start in the north, and I would like to look for the precession circle, which you won't see because it doesn't exist. It's not visible. This is an artificial marking that we put up in Stellarium to show you that the Earth's North Pole wanders over time, over almost 25,000 years, makes a huge circle and comes back to where it started. So in 25,000 years, we'll come back to the North Star, Polaris, Alpha in Ursa Minor. What's Ursa? Little bear. Minor, little. Ursa, bear. There's a big bear, kind of, well, it's above the trees at Jenny Jump, UACNJ. Big bear, you see the head? See the claws? The long tail? Anybody here ever see a bear with a long tail? Are you hallucinating? Do bears have long tails? There's a legend about that. The Big Dipper is only a part of the Big Bear, so it's not a constellation. And another myth is that there are 7 stars in the Big Dipper. It's actually 8. See it in the bend? There's a small star right there. Famous double star, Mizar and Alcor. You can use one constellation to find another. Big Dipper's pointer stars, about 5 times their angle. Their distance between each other is about 5 degrees. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 comes to the North Pole. So it helps you find the Earth's North Pole, which is not exactly at the North Star. It's very close. Right? In about 8,000 years, it'll be the bright star Vega, or Vega, V-E-G-A, summertime star. You can also see the king and the queen any time of the year. these constellations, Big Bear, Little Bear, Dragon, Draco, Cepheus King, Cassiopeia Queen, they just spin around the North Star, and they're always visible in New Jersey. Even in the daytime, right? No, but they're there. So once you get your bearings and you know where north is, you can bypass west and look towards the south for the signs of the zodiac. Recognize this one, long horns, fierce red eye, Aldebaran in Taurus, Alpha Tauri. Astronomers like to abbreviate things and make things confusing for us lay people. TAU, 3 letters for each constellation. This one is Ori, Orion, Alpha Orion, Alpha Tauri. So the brightest star in each constellation is generally Alpha, Greek letter, and then Beta is the second brightest. This is the bull, Taurus. Does it look like a bull to you? You can put up different mythological figures from a couple dozen different cultures in Stellarium. Inuit, early Americans, other European countries, South America. Very interesting. The planet Jupiter is disfiguring the Hyades star cluster, the face of the bull. And it's making things a little confusing here. If we find Orion, the hunter, almost looks like a hunter, right? He's holding a club, an animal skin. He's got a sword hanging below his belt. Do you see it? If you follow his belt to the right or west, past the Hyades, you come to the Pleiades, another star cluster, younger, tighter, close together. This is called an open cluster of stars. The planet Jupiter, let's take a look. Let's center Jupiter and zoom in. You have to zoom in an awful lot with a pair of binoculars and their low power. You can see Jupiter's disk perhaps just barely. You'll see 4 stars right now. Go outside right now, look at Jupiter in binoculars. You'll see all 4 of the major Galilean moons discovered by who? The Galilean moons. Galileo, 1610, more than 400 years ago. He saw them shuttling back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes they disappeared behind Jupiter. Some of us watch as their shadows go across the disk of Jupiter, which you can see some details on in a small telescope. Come to Jenny Jump to UACNJ April through October when it's not too cold at night. Any Saturday, 8 o'clock, we have live viewing with live astronomers who are awake. Some of them drink coffee to stay awake, and they set up their tripods. They take a lot of care to set up their mounts and tripods. So if you kick the tripod by accident, you will make them cry. Please don't do that. You can look through the telescopes. You can see a projection on the side of one of the observatories. There are 6 observatories besides the main building. Well, right now it might be 7. And they will show you through their telescope what these things look like. In larger telescopes, Jupiter shows an enormous amount of detail in its clouds, a gas giant. And right now, as we speak, if you were looking at Jupiter in a telescope, you would see the largest storm in the solar system, the Great Red Spot. You know, I did warn you, right? Astronomers not very imaginative with their names. This big red thing is the Great Red Spot. It's an anticyclone that's been going on for 400 years. And it's not the same one that they discovered 400 years ago. It kind of reformed. It's also not as big as it used to be. It's now about 2 Earths wide. When I was a kid in the Cretaceous era, as Kim warned you, many millions of years ago, when I was a kid, the spot was 3 Earths long, about 25,000 miles. Now it's only 16,000 miles long. Yikes. Storms on Jupiter are the size of planets. Incredible. And their largest moon is the size of a planet. Ganymede rivals Mercury for size. My favorite moon is Europa. Might be the abode of life, for underneath that icy crust is an ocean that's been kept from freezing by Jupiter's tidal forces, warming the moon. The brownish colors from organic compounds. Is there life inside Europa? We might find out when the Europa Clipper mission gets there later on this decade. Exciting time to be alive in astronomy. I talked about what you could find if you use Orion, one of the most easily recognized constellations, to star hop to the right. What if we star hop to the left or east? We come to the second brightest star in the sky, Sirius. Yes, I'm not joking, I'm serious. This is the second brightest star. What's the brightest star in the sky, everybody? 3 letters, Latin, S-O-L, Sol. Sun, trick question, the daytime star. This one is 8.6 light years away. The sun is 8.3 light minutes away, right? And there's 31 million seconds in a year, right? Divide by 60 to get minutes in a year and multiply by 8.6. That's a lot. That's like 50 trillion miles. And you can see why astronomers don't use miles. Just too small. They measure things in the time that in the distance that light travels in 1 year. Sirius is the dog star. Canis Major is the constellation, the large dog, Canis dog major, large. And of course, there's a small dog, see it, above the Monoceros, the unicorn. This looks just like a unicorn, right? All right, let me make it easier. Just like a unicorn, right? The little dog, just like a... Well, there is a nice bright star in the little dog, Procyon, called that because it comes before the big dog. It rises earlier than the big dog above the ground. Pro, coming before Scion, the dog. And it makes up one of the 3 stars in the winter triangle. The winter skies in New Jersey have some of the brightest, most colorful stars in the heavens. Some of them are supergiant stars, very bright, rather far from us. Betelgeuse is 498 light years away. Procyon, 11.5. Sirius, 8.6. But the winter triangle makes a nice grouping. Betelgeuse has a kind of a reddish color. Procyon, more neutral. Sirius is a kind of a bluish white. And actually even more bluish white is Rigel, the knee of Orion. When I was a kid, I learned that this was Orion's shoulder, Betelgeuse. There are different ways to say it. Not so. The literal translation is the armpit of the giant. I found that out when I was an adult. The armpit of the giant. Alnitaka, Alnilam, Mintaka, the stars of the belt are near some beautiful nebulae, word for cloud. This whole region of Orion has clouds, dark clouds, emission clouds that emit light, the reddish light of hydrogen gas, dark dust that gets in the way that looks like a famous animal. You know this nebula? Dark nebula? Horse head? And most famous of all, invisible even in binoculars, the fuzzy star in the center of the sword of Orion, the Great Nebula of Orion, M42. It has 2 colors in long exposure photos. To the human eye looking in a telescope, our eyes are not very good, not sensitive to color so much at low light levels. So these tend to look somewhat greenish where our eyes are more sensitive, the green area of the spectrum. But in photographs, you see hydrogen glows red, the most common element in the universe. And the dust reflects the light of young blue stars, hot bluish stars. Think about a gas flame, blue at the bottom, hot, get less hot, orangey and yellow at the top. These are hot young stars burning through their lifespans thousands of times faster than stars like the sun. The sun has been around 5 billion years. These stars will last maybe a few 100 million years at most. but they light up the nebula with beautiful blue glows. And there is some dust. And some of this gas and dust will someday collapse and become stars and planets. How do we know? Because astronomers who are old like me have been watching the sky so long that they've watched nebulae turning on to become stars. They're not making it up. I'm making things up, but they aren't. Now, if you like to challenge yourself, you found the winter triangle, you're feeling like a hotshot. Well, it's a little confusing with these bright planets, Jupiter and Mars, but don't worry, they'll get out of the way in a year or so. You can find the winter hexagon. Let's start with Rigel in the knee of Orion. Pardon me. Go to Aldebaran in the eye of the bull. Go to Capella in the chariot rider, who looks just like a guy riding a chariot carrying baby goats. How on earth anybody ever saw a chariot rider carrying baby goats? There they are. I don't know. So let's do that again. Rigel, Aldebaran in the eye of the bull, Capella in the chariot rider, Castor and Pollux, a bluish and yellow star in the twins, Gemini. Procyon we saw before in the little dog, looks just like a little dog, and Sirius the dog star, brightest nighttime star. Winter hexagon, cool challenge. In your eye has seen temperature. Yellow stars like Pollux, the way the sun would look from a long way off, average temperature, only 10,000 degrees Kelvin. Stars like Betelgeuse and Aldebaran, only a few hundred degrees. Nothing, that's hardly warmer than New Jersey in the summer. And then finally, hot bluish stars, 20,000 Kelvin or centigrade or Celsius. Lots to see in the night sky. I don't want to get too confusing, so maybe we'll end with a little constellation just below Orion. In the real sky, I'm going to zoom in to show you the apparent size is much bigger. When you look at these constellations, they seem enormous to me. They occupy quite an angle in the sky. This little constellation is fun. It's called Lepus, Lepus, Lepus. What is it? So it's fun to learn the sky. I did it by using a planisphere when I was younger, a circular star chart, right? And we happen to sell these at the gift shop at UAC&J. Shameless advertisement. You can also buy them at museum gift shops, anywhere that sells sciencey equipment. You can order it online. But we hope you'll come and support us because we're run completely by volunteer help. We don't get paid to do this. I'm an amateur astronomer, which means I do it for love, not money. And you'd be surprised how much amateur astronomers know. A lot more about observing than many professional astronomers. So we have a lot of experts when you come visit starting April. Do ask them a lot of questions. One thing before we conclude and come back for questions, I do want to point out that the moon, sun, and planets travel along the ecliptic path, which we can make visible in stellarium like this. And so if we were to watch starting from the first of the month, why don't we go forward in time? We can do that in stellarium. We can time travel. You see that? March 2nd, 3rd. Here comes the moon. If you saw the moon earlier tonight, it was in crescent phase. Kind of hard to see the phase. If I zoom in too much, then I won't be able to see the constellations it's going through. So I'm going to do what we astronomers call, by the scientific term, I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to make the moon about 4 times bigger than normal. So instead of a half degree, it's going to be 2 degrees, the way it looks from the way the Earth looks from the moon. Now, do you see the crescent phase on the 3rd? On the 4th, it's approaching the planet Jupiter. And near first quarter phase, the moon is passing Jupiter on the 5th of March. Let's go further forward in time, the 6th. Again, I'm picking the current time, 8:41, but I'm doing it different dates. So if you go outside the same time each night, you'll see that the moon has moved through the constellations. We say that Jupiter and the moon are in Taurus, the sign of the zodiac. Doesn't mean that it's close to these stars. Aldebaran is how far? 66.6 light years away. Jupiter is not. Jupiter is distance from us or from the sun 5 astronomical units, and it's close to opposition, so -1 AU for the Earth-Sun distance, only 4 astronomical units away, about 400 million miles. So it's not light years. It's not near the stars. It's just in front of, just like the moon. Again, on the 6th, on the 7th, on the 8th, it's passing the planet Mars in Gemini, on the 9th, in Cancer, on the 10th, in Leo, and then on the 13th, you want to start watching at night for the total eclipse of the moon. Let's bring it back to normal size and zoom in. Are you going to see the shadow of the Earth? No, I've drawn it so you can see what's going to happen. And 8:42, nothing's happening. By 9, oops, that's jumping because I didn't pick the moon. I'm going to freeze action on the moon. You see what's happening by almost 10 o'clock, the moon's approaching. And so let's speed time up a little bit, shall we? The moon is moving around the Earth every 27 1/3 days, or 29 1/2 by the phases. Actually, 27 1/3. Entering the umbra around 11 o'clock at night on the 13th. Are you going to see the penumbra? You're going to see the moon darken in the penumbra? Well, hardly. It's rather difficult. It only changes very faintly. You might not notice the difference at all. But when the moon reaches the umbra, about midnight, you'll start to see something happen. You'll see the moon getting dark, a piece getting cut out of the moon. And then dramatically, as the moon enters deeper and deeper into the umbra, the deepest part of the shadow, light comes from somewhere and lights the moon up blood red, well, orangey, until maximum eclipse happens around 2 a.m. I hope some of you will set your alarm. Get out there, sleepy or not. Put on your bathrobes, your night clothes. Get out there, take a look at the beautiful eclipse of the moon, and then go back to sleep if you have to. Why is the moon red? Let's find out by looking at the way the Earth looks from the moon. All right, by 3 a.m., the moon is exiting the umbra. And it'll be in the penumbra by 3:30, and the whole eclipse will be over after 4. Very dramatic. It takes hours, so you get a lot of opportunity to see something happen. Now, what I did was I wondered what it might be like to see the eclipse from the moon. And here we are on the surface of the moon, looking at the Earth approaching the sun. An eclipse, a total lunar eclipse, but seen from the moon. Let's speed up time so we can watch it, not too fast, and find out, why does the moon turn red? Well, unlike the moon, the Earth has a dense atmosphere. And you know how the sun turns red during a sunset? Do you see that red corona around the Earth? I'm stopping time. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see a little red corona around the Earth. That's the Earth's atmosphere acting like a lens. It bends some of the light all the way around. It hits the moon just enough to light it up slightly reddish. Isn't that cool? Don't you wish you can go to the moon and see an eclipse? Future tourists will do that. You can do that with the free program Celestia, which is this program that I'm using right here. Back to our presentation. I'm going to leave Stellarium running in case there are questions. Whoops. If you still like to read, anybody out there like to read, raise your hand. I can't see you, but I hope there are people who still like to read, because Sky and Telescope and Astronomy are magazines written at the level of a layperson. Like myself, I am a layperson, even though I have some knowledge of astronomy, it doesn't not make me a professional. This is written at levels where we can understand. And they've been in print for decades. They have very nice online paying sites, but large parts of those websites are absolutely free. I urge you to take advantage of that. Go there, check out the schedules, check out the observing section for what there is to see in the sky. It'll reiterate what I was talking about today. If you forget everything else I've mentioned tonight, except for the eclipse, don't forget space.com, easy to remember. And if you go to space.com and look for the best stargazing apps, you'll find a lot. Some are attuned to Apple users, some are good for professional photographers, astrophotography, some for ease of use. I like Stellarium because it's free. You can download it and put it on your laptop, or anybody still have a desktop? Does anyone out there still know what a desktop is? You can put it on a mobile device. You can, if you don't want to put it on anything, you could just go and use their supercomputers at stellarium-web.org. But I find it a lot of fun to use on my phone, on my Android phone. Celestia lets you go to other places, other moons of the solar system. There are only two places in the solar system where you can see the rings of Saturn open, because the path takes us in such a way that Saturn, as it goes around the sun, it's tipped 26 degrees or so, a little more than the Earth is tipped on its axis, which means that as it moves around the sun, always pointing its axis in one direction, we get to see the rings close and open and disappear and then go wide open. This month, the rings of Saturn will disappear edge on. They're only 10 to 30 meters thick, no more than 100 feet, compared to 170,000 miles from end to end. Compare the disk of Saturn with Earth. It's 9 Earths wide. It's a big planet, a gas giant. Well, there's one other place where you can see the rings of Saturn open. A great place to put a hotel is on the moon Iapetus, Iapetus, Iapetus. It's a moon that is orbiting further out than the giant moon Titan, which you may have heard a lot about. There may be some kind of life on Titan. But Iapetus, tiny moon, has very low gravity. You can jump for hundreds of feet on your hotel trip, and you can see the rings of Saturn open and close in an endless cycle every 79 days that it takes Iapetus to orbit the planet Saturn. Go check it out in celestiaproject.space, Celestia. If you want to get started in astronomy, an inexpensive way is giant binoculars. And I say giant, not standard birdwatching binoculars, because you get a little more light the bigger the lens, which is measured by the second number in millimeters. There are exactly 25.4 millimeters to the inch. So you want a pair of binoculars with lenses that are bigger than 2 inches or 50 millimeters. Bigger would be better. You get more light, you see fainter objects. Higher magnification, 12, the first number, or 25 by 70. So when you see this number, X number, it's power and size of the lens. If you divide the first number into the second, you get the size of the cone of light coming to your eye. And if you're old like me, you don't want a cone of light bigger than 5 millimeters. So what is 12 divided into 60? Anybody, shout it out. I can't hear you. You can put it in chat, and Kim will tell me. So 60 over 12 is the size of an old person like me's pupil. That little hole in my eye is going to let in light. But if I have, let's say, 7 by 50 binoculars with 7 millimeter exit pupil, some of the light gets wasted. Right? So you want to be careful about that. That's one way to judge binoculars. Another way is the price. These are all pretty good. Binoculars like this used to cost more than $200. Prices seem to have come down everywhere. And so I just picked, at random, I picked some big brands just to show you. One disadvantage of big binoculars is weight. It's helpful to put them on something solid, like the roof of a car. I use my railing by my steps, but you might want to consider a tripod. And once again, a review and a test. Uh-oh. Moon phases, right? The end of the month, the moon is new. It's a great time to see faint things like nebulas, like the Orion Nebula or the Horsehead. Middle of the month, don't miss. I'm going to repeat again, March 14th, 2 a.m. is the middle of the eclipse. Look between 1 and 3. Set your alarm. It's worth it. It's worth getting a little bit sleepy, waking up a little sleepy the next day. This is an opportunity that doesn't come along all the time, because sometimes it's a partial eclipse. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's in the other end of the world. Here, it's visible over the entire United States, partially in Australia, partially in Africa, in the Americas, total. Look for Mercury early in the month. Look for Venus, both evening and morning star, in the middle, toward the middle and end of the month. Or now, just go out, look for it early after sunset. We got the equinox and a partial eclipse of the sun that's hardly worth it, not like the total eclipse we saw back in April last year. You can find me at astronomyinmotion.com. I like to animate things in space. So you'll find my animations and 3D models that you can play with for free at Astronomy in Motion. At Mars at Your Fingertips, which is also advertised at Astronomy in Motion, I sell a model, 3D model of the planet Mars in 4K that you can move with your fingertips or mouse or joystick. You can click on hotspots to hear short, snappy, really neat, fast videos about all the major features like the giant volcano, Olympus Mons, all narrated by my wife, that's her hand, who I have not paid in years. It's shameful. And if you can't afford the $8, you can get the free HD version. Absolutely free. It's a sample, has a sample of the 10 major features and 28 landing and crash sites. You can hear 5 of the videos. You can play with models of the moon and the landing sites of the astronauts. Yes, people did land on the moon. I know because I watched it happen. And the government was not capable of faking anything that complicated back then. It can't even buying toilets right today. So how could it fake a moon landing? You can see a picture of the moon made by Lucien Moreau, who had hints of craters in 1911, 50 years before they were photographed for the first time. You can compare it with modern Mars. Side by side, you can move these things with your fingers. You can zoom in for detail. You can see Pluto and its moon, and you can see how the planets Jupiter and Earth would look like to somebody looking to see if there's life in our solar system from far away. All sorts of things you can do there. And I hope that you will come visit us either online everywhere, including Facebook and YouTube, and in person when you'll see me there the first Saturday of each month. And you'll see other topics like black holes, exploring the sky from Antarctica, how gravity waves astronomy work, every Saturday, April through October. And with that, I want to say thanks, especially to our team that made this possible, and thank you for being such a good audience. You can ask questions if you like. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie, for another great presentation. So we are going to get into questions. And our first online question is, are you guys going to be at NEAF this year? So I know the answer for you, AC and J. Are you going to go to NEAF, Lonnie?
I won't be able to make it, but it's worth doing that. There's all kinds of exchanges and stuff to buy. Really cool. You can talk to amateur astronomers. Just don't kick their tripods.
But United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey will actually be attending NEAF, which, for those who don't know, is the Northeast Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York. So we will be there. We do have a booth. If you do happen to go, please stop in, say hi. It's always a great time to meet other people interested in astronomy. It's also a great time if you have if you're trying to do research on various telescopes. There's a lot of makers, there's a lot of different vendors who have different tech out, whether you're into just starting out. or you might check out Celestron, or what's another one? Orion scopes. I'm trying to think of all the telescopes, and I've now blanked because that's how that works. Um, I already said Celestron, Jeff. Ioptron. I thought they did cameras, not telescopes. Anyhow, regardless, whether you're a beginner and just starting out, or you're or more advanced user and starting to get into astrophotography or more serious science, a lot of us will be there, and we do hope to see you. Like I said, stop in and say hi. All right, and our next online question is: if you were inside of a nebula, would it be stormy?
Oh, that's a great question because I was just watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and they have the Enterprise passing through what looks like cotton candy clouds so thick you can't even see what you're driving into, if driving is the correct word to use for a starship. But no, nebulae are so diffuse you would not even know if you were in one. It's just that we see them from a great distance. We take long exposure photographs to collect the light over long periods of time. In fact, one of the amateur astronomers, Wayne Zuhl, just completed an exposure of 22 hours generally over several nights. It takes sometimes several nights to do that, to collect enough light to make a beautiful picture. So to the human eye, would we see nebulae if we were actually there in space? Probably not. Disappointing, isn't it? Often things are
A little
disappointing to
bit.
look at. Yeah, yeah.
Although, I guess when you're in a plane and you're going through a cloud, sometimes it seems less cloud-like
Mhm.
than you would think. Because the clouds look so solid when you're viewing them from the ground until the clouds either come down to the ground or you go up to the clouds and you're like, ah,
Think about how bright the moon looks when you see it from a great distance from the Earth. But you go to walk on the moon like the astronauts did, and yes, they did. The soil is gray and it's kind of dark in color. It doesn't reflect a lot of light.
all right. So our next question, and like I said, guys, do feel free to get those questions in, even if they weren't about the presentation tonight. We do love astronomy and science, so we will do our best to get those answers for you. Our next question is the observatory open at the moment? And I had actually answered this in a chat, but we are the physical location of the observatory itself is not currently open. Uh, we are in the process of actively getting it ready for when we are open every Saturday, April through October. So 5 short weeks away, and we will be having the presentations on Saturday back on site. Where gates open at 7:30, we have our presentation at 8, and then weather permitting, we do have observing of the night sky. All right. So I'm just going to give a little bit of time just in case other people have questions. Uh, do you have any questions for chat, Lonnie? Any
Um,
burning questions for our online audience?
yeah, I want to know why people would find an excuse not to look for the lunar eclipse on the 14th. I'm going to keep hounding you until you all go
They're
out and
so
look.
eepy. They need to use the sleep.
Well, you can
uh,
always set your phone to wake you up, go out, look, and then come back in.
yeah, and some of us astronomers have been sending memes back and forth like, nothing like unusual or particularly spectacular going on. Perfectly clear skies. Biggest
Hmm.
astronomical event of the century. Completely clouded over.
Well, of
Uh,
course. Yeah, it never
so
fails.
we will see. Um, oh,
The-
and as a remind, uh, someone, uh, Chris had actually reminded me about this. Um, So depending on what the weather brings tomorrow and what project we might be working on at the observatory, we may or may not stream some of the work we are doing to actually prep the observatory for the first on-site program of the season. So some cleanup, you know how it goes. There's always so many things to do and not enough time to do them all in.
Of course.
All right. So it looks like we have exhausted our questions for tonight, or chat's very shy. Don't worry if you did happen to be shy. Uh, Never fear. We do keep these videos up on our YouTube channel archived. So do feel free to check out any past broadcasts there. If you happen to realize you actually wanted to ask the questions, do feel free to leave a comment on the specific video. I do look for comments periodically to try and get those answered for you guys. In addition, you can also reach out to us through our contact info on our website or any of our social media, including our Facebook, our Instagram, our Discord channel, all excellent resources that we do keep an eye on. Um, but yeah, I do want to shout out an anonymous blah 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 blah
Whoops.
anonymous an anonymous viewer had actually gifted a few subs in our Twitch channel to Astro Canuck, Nerduino, and Science Streams. All three of those are great science communicators on Twitch. So if you're looking for other science viewers or more science or STEM content, they're all great people to go watch and follow over on Twitch. YouTube, we of course know there are so many various streamers and uh, content creators that are awesome at bringing their love of science and astronomy to everyone as you can. Um, like I said, one of the easiest ways is completely free. Hit those like, follow, subscribe buttons either down below if you're on YouTube. It might be up above if you're on Twitch, especially if you're in the mobile app. They moved things recently. Um, and like I said, never fear. You can always look at our YouTube for the VODs.
And I want
And
to
with that,
just want to say one last thanks for my enthusiastic friend Joe, who's been looking forward to this for at least 2 weeks.
yes, we do enjoy everyone who, whether you're just lurking or whether you're chatting it up with us in stream. Uh, and until next time, I think we have a rerun planned for next Saturday. And I just need to nail down some details to see if the person is still available to stream the Saturday after that for a live presentation, but that'll go on the website if that becomes a thing. And if it doesn't, it won't be on the website. With that, I want to wish everyone a good night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Lonnie, for another great talk. And with this, clear skies and good seeing.
Thank you, Kim.